But despite the growing recognition of humanity's potential for chaos, there was something undeniably fascinating about them. There were those who saw their defiance as a spark of hope in an otherwise rigid universe. There were others who viewed it as an impending storm, a storm that, if left unchecked, would tear apart everything they had carefully built. The first true crisis for humanity came not from any galactic war, but from within. Humanity's rapid expansion beyond Earth had led to a shift in the balance of power within its own borders. The human race, after all, was not without its flaws. Just because humans could throw off the yoke of any authority didn't mean they had a solid grasp on their own unity. Some factions saw themselves as superior to others, while others rejected any notion of unity altogether. It began with small, rogue factions forming on the outer colonies. A few planets that had been established as safe havens for free-thinking humans, isolated from the larger human government, began to take advantage of their freedom. They preached radical independence, and some even questioned the authority of Earth itself. It was a problem that many had predicted: humanity's inability to stay in line, to work together toward a common goal. And while the Galactic Council had no real influence over the situation, they did begin to watch, waiting for a chance to exploit the growing disarray. Earth's government, a patchwork of democratic institutions and decentralized power structures, found itself on the brink of collapse. The independents, as they called themselves, wanted nothing to do with Earth's heavy-handed laws or regulations. They sought total autonomy. But as these factions grew in power, some humans began to wonder, was this what freedom really meant? Could humanity exist in a fractured, uncooperative state, or was there a path forward that preserved the rights of every individual while ensuring the survival of the species? The debate raged across Earth and its colonies. Some argued that humanity should embrace the chaos and let each colony and faction exist as they saw fit. Others, like Dr. Merrill Lark, who had once been a voice of defiance against the galaxy, now stood on the other side of the debate. She spoke of unity, of the necessity of forming a cohesive human identity before the galaxy turned on them once again. "We cannot afford to fracture," she said in a famous broadcast. "The galaxy already thinks we're unpredictable enough. Imagine what happens when they see us tearing ourselves apart." The independents, however, cared little for unity. To them, it wasn't about survival in the galactic sense, it was about freedom on their terms. They weren't concerned with what other species thought or whether humanity would face the consequences of their rebellion. They simply wanted to be left alone to be free. It was a strange dichotomy. On one side, humanity's natural resilience, its refusal to bend under the weight of authority, had made them a powerful force. On the other, their refusal to find common ground was now threatening to fracture their society at its core. And then, as if the universe itself had decided to play its hand, the galaxy's greatest test of humanity's resolve arrived. A massive fleet of unknown origin appeared just beyond the borders of human space. They were not Drexari, not Zorathian, not Eldrin. They were something entirely new, a race of terrifying, towering beings whose ships crackled with dark energy. They called themselves the Xeroc. The Xeroc didn't bother with diplomacy. They didn't send emissaries or offer treaties. They didn't even make contact in the traditional sense. They simply arrived in human space and started annihilating anything in their path. Planets. Colonies. Entire cities were wiped off the map, with a horrifying efficiency that made the previous conflicts seem like child's play. The humans, still trying to unite their fractured factions, couldn't even agree on how to respond. Some advocated for a swift, united counteroffensive. Others wanted to focus on evacuations and defense, fearing a war would spread humanity too thin. The Xeroc didn't care about the internal politics of humanity. They didn't care about whether humans were united or divided. They were unstoppable, a force of destruction unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Their ships, made of a dark, shimmering alloy that seemed impervious to conventional weapons, decimated human fleets with ease. Their weapons didn't explode or burn, they twisted space and time, disintegrating entire swaths of reality. The humans' response was chaotic, fragmented, and desperate. They didn't have the unity that they needed. Earth's government tried to consolidate its forces, but factions continued to fight over how to allocate resources and command. The independents wanted to fight their own battles without interference. The more centralized human forces, led by Earth's Council, wanted to unite humanity under one banner and face the Xerox together. But every attempt at organization was met with sabotage, betrayal, and internal strife. And yet, in the midst of all this turmoil, something remarkable happened. A new faction emerged, one that was neither tied to the old guard of Earth nor to the renegade independents. These were not diplomats or military strategists. They were the survivors, the engineers, the hackers, the former soldiers who had fought in the earlier wars and survived by sheer grit. These were the humans who, instead of focusing on politics or power, focused on one thing: how to survive the Xerox. Led by a man named Dorian Shaw, a former soldier and mechanic, this new group called themselves the Broken Wings. They didn't care about allegiances. They didn't care about who controlled what territory. They only cared about one thing: figuring out how to stop the Xerox. Shaw's group pooled their resources, scavenging wrecked ships, analyzing captured Xerox technology, and finding ways to turn their own human ingenuity against the invaders. The Broken Wings were a patchwork team of brilliant minds, war-torn veterans, and resourceful engineers. Shaw himself was a grizzled, weary man who had spent most of his life fixing broken ships and salvaging discarded technology, a man who knew how to build things out of nothing. Under his leadership, the Broken Wings became an unstoppable force, working in the shadows, forging unlikely alliances with the fractured factions, and creating weapons unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. In a daring, covert mission, Shaw and his team infiltrated a Xerox battleship and stole vital information that allowed them to understand the fundamental nature of the Xerox technology. Their ships were powered by a form of energy that was not just alien, it was primordial. It was energy that existed outside the known laws of physics, a force so powerful that it could reshape the very fabric of reality. Shaw didn't flinch when he saw the data. In fact, he smiled. "Time to show them why you never underestimate a human," he muttered. The Broken Wings, working in secret, developed a weapon that could counter the Xerox reality warping technology. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a fleet. It was a disruptor, a device that could destabilize the Xerox energy fields, rendering their ships vulnerable. It was an invention born from nothing more than human creativity, desperation, and a refusal to accept failure. With the device ready, Shaw and his team launched a daring attack on a Xerox fleet in a system near the human core worlds. The operation was reckless, perilous, and fueled by the very human defiance that had driven their species to greatness. They didn't care about the odds. They didn't care if they had the military might or the political backing. They cared only about one thing: stopping the Xerox. The fight was brutal, chaotic, and bloody. The Broken Wings took out the Xerox flagship with the disruptor, and within hours, the entire invading fleet began to falter. The human ships, even the tattered remnants of the fleet, rallied under Shaw's leadership, using the newfound weapon to turn the tide. The Xerox retreated. Not because they were defeated, no, they were still powerful, and their technology still defied understanding. But for the first time, they had encountered a species that wasn't afraid to bleed, to fight dirty, to think outside the lines. The humans had won not through strength, not through intelligence alone, but through their will. And as Shaw and his team stood victorious, amidst the wreckage of battle and the ruins of shattered fleets, they realized something important: humanity had already passed the test. Not because they had conquered the galaxy, not because they had defeated the Xerox, but because they had proven that they would never, ever give up. Not to anyone. Not to anything. They were human. And they didn't give a single damn. The invasion came suddenly, without warning. One moment, humanity was going about its daily routines, living in a world that had long been accustomed to the hum of civilization, to the order of the day, the progress of technology, the pulse of a species that was slowly making its mark on the stars. Then, the sky split open, and the first alien ships appeared, blotting out the sun. In the blink of an eye, Earth's quiet sense of invulnerability vanished. At first, there was no understanding of the invaders. Their ships were colossal, like floating cities made of metal so dark that the stars themselves seemed to disappear behind them. The first blasts hit the ground with a force that split cities in two, turning major metropolitan areas into craters. People screamed, tried to run, but they were too slow. Too weak. The invaders, whoever they were fast, ruthless, and utterly unrecognizable. From the wreckage of the initial attacks came figures that made no sense to human eyes, towering beings with skins that shimmered in unnatural hues, eyes glowing like burning stars. Their weapons were nothing humanity had ever seen. No artillery, no bombs, no weapons of war that humans had so carefully cultivated could stand against the alien technology. The attacks were precise, coordinated. The aliens had come with purpose, and it was clear that their purpose was not negotiation. It wasn't exploration. It wasn't even conquest. The first wave of attacks decimated Earth's military installations in a matter of hours. The world's top defense systems, missile silos, orbital stations, even nuclear arsenals were rendered useless within minutes. Power grids failed, communications were jammed, and in cities from New York to Beijing, from São Paulo to Mumbai, the streets turned into war zones. Fires raged. People scrambled, desperate to understand what was happening, only to find themselves vaporized by energy blasts that melted steel and stone as though they were made of paper. Yet even as the skies turned dark with alien ships and the earth trembled under the force of their attacks, something inside humanity stirred. Something deep. A refusal to surrender. The invaders may have come with superior technology, with overwhelming firepower, but they had underestimated one thing: humans do not know how to give up. Humanity's resilience was its greatest weapon, and that was something the aliens could not comprehend. The world's governments scrambled. The United Nations convened an emergency meeting, but it was chaos. The representatives, shocked and shaken by the magnitude of the assault, did not know what to do. Earth's military might have been crippled in the opening strikes. The skies, once a symbol of human achievement, were now filled with warships from a civilization far beyond anything Earth had ever dreamed. But amid the panic, one thing became crystal clear: they had no choice but to fight. The humans, battered and broken, were not ready to bow their heads. The survival instinct was alive, deep within them. And it didn't take long for the alien invaders to realize the true nature of humanity: we don't die easily. While governments and military leaders floundered, the people of Earth didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait for orders. Across every corner of the globe, men and women, ordinary citizens, scientists, farmers, soldiers, and children began to fight back. Makeshift militias, drawn from every walk of life, assembled in every city. They armed themselves with whatever they could find: guns, explosives, makeshift shields, and began to attack the invaders. They fought with ferocity, with a primal will to survive that echoed across the planet. It wasn't much at first. A few successful strikes here and there. Some alien ships were brought down by sheer luck, the debris crashing to the earth in massive fireballs. But those small victories were enough to ignite something even more dangerous than the alien forces themselves: hope. The alien invaders, so used to their technological superiority, had never anticipated such a fierce, unified resistance from the very species they had assumed would be weak. Humanity, in its desperation, began to adapt. Fast. Faster than anyone, even the invaders, could have imagined. The moment the first human-made weapons began to pierce the alien armor, a new war started. Humans had always prided themselves on their ability to learn, to adapt, to improve. And it didn't take long for humanity to reverse engineer alien technology weapon systems, shields, energy cores. Some of the best minds in the world, working in secret bunkers and hidden laboratories, began to piece together the mysteries of alien tech. They figured out how their weapons worked, how their ships moved, how their energy fields were generated. Soon, Earth was not just on the defensive, it was on the offensive. The moment humanity figured out how to adapt alien weaponry to their own systems, the war changed. No longer were the invaders the overwhelming force. No longer were they unstoppable. Earth's response was rapid, precise, and brutal. The alien fleet that had initially rained down destruction on Earth's cities soon found itself outgunned, outmaneuvered, and outclassed. The first human-made ships equipped with alien-derived weaponry began to take down the invaders' vessels. Huge, metallic behemoths that had once seemed invincible were now falling like shooting stars. The aliens, accustomed to crushing their enemies with ease, found themselves facing something they couldn't comprehend: a species that refused to be beaten, no matter the odds. Humanity, united by the threat of extinction, threw itself into war with a singular focus. And as human forces, equipped with both their own ingenuity and the aliens' advanced technology, fought back, a new kind of fear began to spread through the ranks of the invaders. The humans weren't just retaliating, they were evolving. They were adapting in real time, learning faster than anyone could have predicted. And that terrified the aliens. One of the first turning points in the war came when humans managed to capture an alien ship, a dreadnought, one of the largest ships in the invader fleet. Using human ingenuity and a level of resourcefulness that bordered on desperation, engineers aboard the ship, working around the clock, reverse-engineered its power core. Within weeks, they had stripped the technology, learning its secrets and adapting it to their own systems. The first human-made dreadnoughts, bearing the same alien design but built with human innovation, launched their own attack on the alien fleet. It was a symbol of humanity's unwillingness to be dominated. The alien invaders, who had once considered humans nothing more than primitive insects, soon found themselves reeling. The Earth they had attacked was no longer the helpless, disorganized world they had anticipated. The humans had transformed into a unified, dangerous enemy. Every city became a fortress. Every human a soldier. And the worst part, from the invaders' perspective, was that the humans weren't playing by any rules. They weren't following the conventions of war. The concept of rules of engagement was foreign to them. If a human had to break every rule, sacrifice anything to survive, they would. And that willingness to destroy everything to ensure their survival was a weapon the aliens had no answer for. Human strategies began to shift as they adapted alien tactics. They didn't wait for the aliens to make the first move anymore. Humans went on the offensive, taking the war straight to the heart of the invaders' fleet. Massive space battles broke out in orbit, but this time, the alien ships were losing. For every alien dreadnought destroyed, 5 more human-made warships, armed with alien technology, emerged. The invaders, who had thought they were superior in every way, found themselves facing a war that they hadn't expected. Then came the ground assaults. The cities that had once been torn apart by the invaders' brutal bombings were now fortified, defended by people who had learned to use their own alien-derived weapons against them. Humans developed new forms of warfare, guerrilla tactics using everything from homemade explosives to repurposed alien tech. Every urban area became a battleground. Humans fought for every inch of territory, for every piece of ground. In the streets, in the mountains, in the forests, they waged war against an enemy that had once been superior. The aliens tried to counterattack. They brought more reinforcements. But what they didn't account for was humanity's greatest asset, determination. The will to survive. The will to never surrender. The aliens had come to Earth with the intent to conquer, but they had underestimated just how far humans would go to protect their home. It wasn't long before the invaders began to retreat. At first, it was a slow, hesitant withdrawal. The remaining ships retreated to the far reaches of the solar system, trying to regroup. But humans were already hunting them down. A human fleet, now fully equipped with the stolen technology of the invaders, tracked them across the stars. They knew the aliens would never stop until they were either dead or completely eradicated. And humans, as they had shown time and time again, were not the type to wait for extinction. The final battle came in the vastness of space, near the asteroid belt. It was a cataclysmic battle, with massive explosions, ships disintegrating in a flash of light, and entire fleets falling apart under the might of human wrath. The last remnants of the alien fleet were obliterated, the final blow coming when a human-made weapon, a missile carrying the combined might of human science and alien technology, collided with the last invader's flagship. When the smoke cleared, the alien invaders were gone. The war was over. Earth was battered, but it had survived. Humanity had triumphed. It wasn't the end of Earth's struggles. There would be rebuilding, healing, and the scars of war would linger for generations. But one thing was certain: humanity had proven something, not just to the invaders, but to the entire universe. Humans don't give a damn. And they never would. The alien ships, once towering behemoths of destruction, were now floating wrecks in the vast silence of space. Humanity had defeated the invaders, vanquished them, eradicated them. Yet, in the wake of the battle, something else lingered in the air, thick and palpable. It wasn't the cheers of victory or the sense of triumph that one might expect after such a monumental war. It was uncertainty. What now? Humanity had learned something about itself in the fires of battle, but now, in the aftermath, it was faced with a new question: what would the future look like? The invaders were gone, but the world was scarred. Cities lay in ruins, military installations were reduced to rubble, and millions of lives had been lost. The cost of survival was steep. Yet even as humanity began to pick itself up from the ashes of war, a new sense of purpose began to take root, not just on Earth, but across the stars. Humanity had done the impossible. Against all odds, they had stood their ground and driven back an invincible foe. But the victory, as hard-earned as it was, also carried with it a chilling realization. The galaxy wasn't a peaceful, unified place. It was a place where survival was not guaranteed. And there were other species out there, other empires, that would undoubtedly take notice of what had happened to the aliens who had dared to attack Earth. Somewhere, out there in the void, another species was watching. The Zorathians were a name whispered with fear in the darker corners of the galaxy. A war-hardened empire that had swept across star systems, wiping out civilizations in their wake. They had always stayed out of humanity's path. But the Zorathians had their eye on Earth now, and they were far more powerful than the invaders the humans had just wiped out. After the alien invasion was repelled, a hushed quiet fell over the war rooms of Earth's leaders. The world was broken, the defenses were battered, but the human spirit remained unbowed. Humanity had come together in the face of annihilation, forged a new kind of unity, and now, after the dust had settled, the governments and military leaders began to wonder: how long would it be before the next war came knocking at Earth's door? The Zorathians were known for two things: their endless hunger for conquest, and their brutal way of cleansing entire planets of life when they deemed them unworthy. The idea that they might come to Earth, not as invaders but as conquerors, sent a shiver down the spines of even the hardiest military officers. But humanity had already proven that they were capable of standing against seemingly insurmountable odds. Earth wasn't going to wait for another invasion to start preparing. Humanity wasn't going to sit idly by. The scars of the previous war were too fresh, too painful. The call went out, not for rebuilding alone, but for expansion, for preparing for the wars to come. If the Zorathians were watching, waiting, they would see something new when they turned their eyes to Earth: humanity, not just surviving, but rising, growing, evolving into something that would never be wiped out again. The world governments knew that Earth couldn't fight another battle the same way. They needed more. They needed power, true power. But what Earth lacked in sheer military might, they made up for in ingenuity. The people who had built space stations, who had already sent ships to the far reaches of the solar system, who had invented the weapons that had helped defeat the invaders, were now looking at the galaxy with new eyes. Earth needed to not just defend itself, but to take the fight to the stars. And that's when the Terran Reclamation Initiative was born. The initiative was simple in concept. Earth would send out its best and brightest scientists, engineers, soldiers, and strategists into the galaxy. Humanity would no longer sit on the defensive, waiting for invaders to strike. They would take the offensive. They would travel to the stars, learn about alien civilizations, and find ways to neutralize any species that posed a threat. Earth was no longer just a world isolated in a corner of the galaxy. Earth was going to make a statement, never again. The first wave of the initiative was the construction of humanity's warships, but these weren't just ships, they were entire fortresses in space. The new ships were built with every piece of alien technology humanity had captured or reverse engineered, and they were formidable. The Terran fleet wasn't just a show of force, it was a declaration. Humanity was no longer playing by the galaxy's rules. It wasn't just technology that had changed, however. It was the mindset. The species that had once been considered primitive by the rest of the galaxy, the species that had been invaded, bombed, and nearly wiped out, was now a force to be reckoned with. Human culture, once fragmented, became a beacon of unity. No longer were humans scattered by borders, politics, or ideologies. The war had done what no other conflict had done before: it united humanity. The remnants of the old nationalistic divides, the old arguments about governance and control, began to fade away in the face of the larger threat. The Terran Confederation emerged, Earth's united military and political structure. It wasn't just a government. It was a machine, a war machine, one with an unyielding drive to preserve humanity at all costs. Humanity's reclamation wasn't just about weapons and ships, though. It was about knowledge. Humanity had learned from their first encounter with an advanced alien species. The next time, they would not be unprepared. They would not be blindsided. The Terran scientists began mining the wreckage of the alien ships, extracting their data, studying their technologies, and reverse engineering their weaponry. The new generation of human engineers could now manufacture alien-level technology. It wasn't just about copying. Humanity wasn't merely trying to catch up with other civilizations. Humanity was innovating, creating new technologies, new weapons, new ways to defend themselves. Within a few short years, human-made hyperdrives began to allow ships to travel faster than light, making Earth's fleet mobile on a galactic scale. Earth was no longer a single world among millions, it was a force that could move across the stars, carrying the weight of its newfound strength. And it wasn't just the military that was advancing. The Terran Confederation began to send exploration teams into the deep reaches of space. Scientists, diplomats, and anthropologists sent to scout out new civilizations, new alien species, and potential threats. But despite humanity's rapid advancements, it wasn't just the knowledge they had acquired that set them apart, it was their relentless will to survive. It wasn't long before humanity encountered other civilizations in the galaxy. Some of them were peaceful, some hostile, and some, like the Zorathians, were just waiting for an excuse to wipe out any species that didn't bow to their will. The Terran fleet began to make its mark across the galaxy, engaging in skirmishes, forging alliances, and sometimes wiping out entire alien fleets that posed a threat. The Zorathians, for their part, knew of humanity's victory. But they didn't understand the true depths of it. They saw the human fleets appear at the edge of their borders, ships bristling with unknown technologies, and they underestimated the humans once again. They thought their might would intimidate humanity, but they were wrong. Humanity had tasted what it was like to stand alone, to be pushed to the brink, and they had survived. One fateful day, the Zorathian fleet moved into the Sol system, their ships darker and more menacing than any the humans had ever encountered. Earth's defenses were ready. Humanity wasn't going to wait for them to land on their soil again.